everyone, welcome to episode 234 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, but you're not going to see this for a couple of weeks. I had not planned to record again before my husband and I leave for Mexico on Saturday, but I have so many things I want to share with you while they're still fresh in mind. So I decided that if I got all my errands done today in a timely manner, then I would set aside a half an hour or so this afternoon to at least record this part of the episode, and then I can worry about editing it when I get home. And so here we are. For those of you who may be new, my name is Carol. I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. So welcome. We have a year-long make-along taking place in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group, which you are welcome to join anytime. There is a general Year of the Stash chatter thread, and then there's also a monthly personal sock yarn club. So come on by the group, read the first post of all the pertinent threads, and that'll tell you everything you need to know to participate. All right. The thing I am most excited about sharing with you is that I have a finished project. It is the Mountain Musings Mystery Shawl by Lisa K. Ross of Paper Daisy Creations. I used a beautiful yarn set from Sweet Paprika Designs to knit this shawl, and I was inspired to choose this colorway by this photograph that I took one November morning of the mountains that are right outside my back door. Literally, I am fortunate to look out on this scene every single day, and it changes every single day. Unfortunately, for the last month or more, many of the days it has been at least partially obscured by wildfire smoke, which it is today. And I'm really hoping that by the time I get home that the fires are under control and that we have clear skies again, because it's been really hard on the lungs and just, just not a very pretty sight to see that smoke hanging in the air all the time. Anyway, back to the shawl. I think what I'll do to start is just hold it up in front of me and give you an overall look. Then I'll talk a little bit more about it, and then I'll push the camera back so that you can see, hopefully, all of it in one shot. So here goes. So start from this end. Isn't it gorgeous? It's been washed and blocked, all the ends have been snipped, and it just feels so nice and drapey and soft. The yarn is a merino, silk, and cashmere blend, and it just has a radiance to it and a beautiful soft hand. I adored working with this yarn. So let's recap all the various clues. There were 6 in all. So we started out with clue 1 and clue 2, knitting this square. That section was called topography. And then we turned that square on its side, turned it into a diamond, and then we began working our way up the mountain. So first we came to mountain dewdrops, then plateaus and valleys. Next up was geodes, then the wildflower fields, picking daisies, walked on some rocky roads, and then it was time for the setting sun. And finally, sunset, where we filled in this corner on each side to turn this end into a rectangle. So when I showed this last, we just had one clue to go, and we went back to the diamond and we filled in the corners on that end, and this section was called Last Rays of Light. And here it is. So we revisited several stitch patterns: mountain dewdrops, plateaus and valleys. For a second, yes. Do you see my mistake? It's supposed to look like that. I just realized I have a mistake on the second section of plateaus and valleys. Ah! Oh well, when I get home, I will take that out and redo it, but I will not be doing that before I leave. There's geodes again, and then the last rays of light. So, shoot. Oh dear. Oh well. I'm not perfect, in case you didn't know that. I am going to push out the camera and then let you get a view of the whole shawl. Hopefully in one shot, and then you can get a look at how it looks when you wear it. So I'll be right back for that. Now you can see all my podcasting mess here, and I still don't think the screen is wide enough to take in the whole shawl, but you'll get a better look at it. So there's the beginnings. It goes all, whoops, goes all the way out there. So it is 64 inches in length and about 2 feet in width. And I was thinking that it might be maybe not quite long enough this way, but it actually is a good length, especially for me. I'm not very tall. I'm only 5 feet 3 inches. So as you can see, it hangs down way past my waist, and it fits very nicely over my shoulders, which is probably how I'll wear it. I do not anticipate wearing this outside of the home, but I will use it definitely in the cooler weather, wrap up with it while I'm knitting or watching TV or something. So I will show you the back. Hopefully I am kneeling down enough that you can see it. So yes, I am so happy to have finished the shawl, and except for that one error, I am thrilled with how it turned out. Okay, I'll be right back with a few works in progress. Before I show you my works in progress, I just wanted to mention that I used a total of 346 grams for my shawl. The best part is I still have 267 grams left over. And so I will put those to good use for sure. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them, whether I will do another shawl, or I was wondering if I might even be able to get some more of the main color from the dyer and perhaps do a yoked sweater that had all the gradient colors worked into the yoke. So to be announced, I guess. To be seen. That's yet to be seen. So yeah, I just thought you've seen a couple of these projects already, but I've put a little bit more work in them, and I thought it'd be nice to see them again, because the next time probably they'll be all finished. So I've continued to work on my October personal sock yarn club socks. I'm knitting them out of this yarn from Biscuit Yarns. It is the Biscuit Yarns. It's the Bis Sock Base in the Hudson Memories colorway. It's a really nice, I think it's merino and nylon. Yeah, 85 merino, Superwash Merino 15% nylon. This yarn is so soft, I just love it. So I have that much done on one of the socks, and whoops, that much on another. So pretty comparable. A few more stripes on the second, or the first than the second. I will be knitting on these on my way to the airport, and most likely will also have them with me on the plane, because they are a, you know, obviously a fairly mindless knit until you get to the heels. Perfect for car knitting. And as I picked up the other skein, it just totally fell apart. So I'm gonna have to do something about that before we go, or it's just gonna be a huge mess to manage. I am also knitting on a second pair of socks, and last week I showed them to you, and I'm trying to remember why I was gonna take them back out again. I don't remember. I just know that I took them back to the cast on, or not to the cast on. I had worked the toe. I'm working them from the toe up, and I took it back to the toe, and then I started knitting them again in a little bit different color order, and adjusted the number of rounds I did with each color also. So I said I was going to move this to another bag, but I have not. I am knitting up the scraps of my Fibernymph Dye Works Winter Palette half skein set into some scrappy socks. I knit the snow melt shawl out of most of the yarn, but I am using up the rest in these socks, and I am making these for the Fibernymph Dye Works make it your own make along, and my theme is the 4 seasons, and so obviously with a name like Winter Palette, they fit right into my theme. So as I mentioned, I am knitting these from the toe up because I want to use up as much yarn as possible, and I also don't want to run out when I get to the toe. So I've got both socks in exactly the same spot. So this is how they're looking now. I had planned to do 4 rounds of each color except for one, because I only have a very little small amount left. But then I realized I probably, a couple of the other colors need to start out with 3 rounds each, because I was afraid I wouldn't have enough to do 4 all the way up. So the colors are Icy Blue. I've followed that up with the Winter Palette Variegated, then Hibernation Greige, Evergreen, Sunset Purple, and then I'm not sure if you can tell, but there is a darker line, and that is Sky Blue. And then I've started again with Icy Blue and working my way through. So I am doing the toes, heels, and cuffs in 3 different colors. So I started obviously with Icy Blue here. I worked German short row heels with Hibernation Greige, and then my cuff is going to be with the Winter Palette Variegated. So that gives you a look from the front and back, and then I will slip one on a sock blocker so you can see it from the side. So as you can see, I'm just past the heel. I think I've done about 7 rows since the heel. So I love how these are coming along. I loved this whole palette, and it's been really fun to see them knit up in a different way than they were in the shawl. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep working. Be right back. As I was saying, I will just keep working them up the leg in this, following this striping pattern for as long as I can, and then I'll do the cuff. And if I have very much left of any of the colors, maybe I'll incorporate some striping into the cuff also. I'm not really sure, I'm just playing it by ear. But yeah, I'm happy with how these are going so far. So I'm also going to take these with me on our trip because, again, stockinette socks, but I probably won't take these on the plane just because it's kind of a nuisance, because every time, oh, that's why I took them back. Every time I'm introducing a new color, I am ending the previous color and then weaving in the ends as I go. And that's why I took it back, because I thought I might be able to color or carry all the yarns up the side and the whole way, and it was just a big tangled mess and created kind of a bulky stitch along the edge. So yes, every time I'm changing colors now, I am weaving in the ends and cutting and weaving in the ends. So even though it's kind of a nuisance, it's worth it in the end. And what you might see or might notice, here's the other sock, so I do have two going. You can see where I'm weaving in the ends as I go. I don't know if, I suspect that will smooth out when I wash them. I've done it numerous times before, and I don't remember it looking like that after I've washed them. But what I did do, because I'm changing colors on one side, I did add the heel at the opposite side of the other sock, so that if necessary I can wear these edges in on the inside of my legs and this on the out. I don't think it's really going to matter, but I just did that to satisfy my OCD nature, I guess. Perfectionist nature is probably a better way of putting it. Anyway, yes, enjoying these, happy with how they're coming along so far. And I sort of doubt they're actually going to leave this bag after all. I'll probably just keep it in here. It's working. All right, and finally, as far as knitting projects go, I started the Stephen West's mystery shawl. It's called Twists and Turns, and I'm knitting it in 3 colors of Cascade 220 fingering. I'm doing color 8400, which is charcoal, 8401, which is silver, and 9404, which is ruby. So I will do chapters and spoiler alerts for both the Mountain Musings shawl and for this one, so if you don't want to be spoiled, by now clues probably 2 and 3 will have already come out. So if you're participating, chances are you will already be at least as far along, but just a fair warning, I'm going to show it now. So I wasn't able to start this until I think the day or two after it was released, just because we've been really busy with some things. But and I am only, what did I figure out? We're supposed to do almost 12 repeats more of the pattern. So you do the first, you work up to row 16, and then you repeat rows 9 to 16 11 more times, and then actually you repeat 9 to 15 once more. And so far I've only done that, I've only worked 4.5 additional repeats. So you can tell I still have a long ways to go on clue number 1, and clue 2 comes out tomorrow. But that's okay, that's just the way it has to be right now. So I'm going to show you part of it. So maybe you haven't seen this yet and you'll be interested in sort of the surprise. So started knitting, and this is what it looks like. So you've got these chevrons, and then you've got these weird bars that you create by casting on some stitches, working some rows, and then casting them off again. And you're alternating the main color and the contrast color. So obviously the dark gray is the charcoal, the light gray is the silver. So I started working on this, and I had watched the beginning of Stephen West's video on Clue 1, but because I like the mystery, I just thought I wasn't gonna skip ahead and sort of ruin the surprise. But at some point, for some reason, I needed to know what was going on because I think I was doing something wrong. So I went ahead and watched some more of the video, and then I discovered that this is not just going to be part of the design element. You're actually going to use these bars in a very ingenious way. So you start at the top. This is the top of the shawl, I'm assuming, because we are working out in an angle like that. And then you pick up the loops as though you were picking up dropped stitches, and it looks like this. Isn't that cool? He is so genius, isn't he? Like, look how cool that is. So when you have all of them, I've still got the ends yarn here, pulling me here. So when you have all of them done, you end up with kind of a gradual crescent shape, I would say. And it does definitely pull this shawl in more. So I had these ones done. I just took them out for illustrative purposes, and I will loop them back up, and I'm kind of doing them as I go. So still a ways to go, still a long ways to go, but now I've got the gist of how it's constructed, and so I don't have to think about it quite as much as I did in the first place, and so all the rows are taking me just a little bit less time than they were when I started. So I do like the graphic nature of this design, and I do like my color choices so far, even though dark gray and light gray are not very exciting. And I am looking forward to when we introduce our main color, contrast, and accent color, I think he's calling it. This is looking very pinkish red. It is a dark blue red. It just does not happen to photograph very well, but I think that's going to look really good with these colors. So Clue 2, as I mentioned, comes out tomorrow, and so I'll be able to print it off and take it with me. I'm going to work on that on the plane because it's complicated enough that it'll engage me, hopefully. It's about a 5-hour flight, I think. And I'm going to go ahead and watch the video for Clue 2 ahead of time in case there are any sort of tricky areas I want to know how to work them before I get on the plane and I can't access that information. So that is it for all my projects. Before I end this portion of the episode, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's been going on since my last episode. As I mentioned, then we were planning a surprise party for my sister's 60th birthday. And that was going to be, it took place last Friday night. And I am happy to say it was a complete surprise and a total success. When the plan is that my sisters and their spouses and my mom and my husband, we were all going to gather at my youngest sister's house for our fall family birthday get-together. We gather as a family 3 times a year, generally, to celebrate birthdays by season. And at one time it used to be all our families, and over time, just because all the kids are grown up and Now they've got kids of their own, some of them. It's kind of been scaled back to just our generation, and then my mom if she's in town. So so we're just doing like an appy night. We all brought something to eat, and the plan was then we were gathering at 6 o'clock, and then the plan was at 8 o'clock extended family and friends were going to start arriving, and she didn't know about it. So we ended up eating first, and then my mom and my sisters and I, we all gave her, well, our husbands do, but we all put together 12 gifts so that she had 60 gifts to open. And so she was in the process of starting to open some of those presents when my cousin and his wife showed up at about 7:45. Now, this cousin is very close to our family. We grew up just a couple of blocks apart, and they have been invited over the years for dessert at family get-togethers or dinner too, not always just afterwards, but often that's how it works. So she wasn't too surprised or suspicious when they showed up. But then right around 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang again, and several groups of friends had arrived all around the same time and arranged to come in together. So when this big group of people came in, then the jig was up. And she was just so surprised. I had asked my brother-in-law if he thought she suspected anything, and he said, yes, but I think she thinks there's something going on tomorrow night with the family, because apparently his son and his wife had both phoned him that day, and it's not typical for either of them to phone, let alone both his son and daughter-in-law in the same day. So, and they had already planned to come out for part of the weekend because it was Thanksgiving weekend last weekend. And so she was totally caught off guard Friday night and had a fabulous time, as did the rest of us. And then she, as we sort of thought might happen, was able to then take her time opening the rest of the gifts at her leisure, and she was extremely appreciative and very surprised, so it was perfect. So then my mom had come down on the Thursday, I guess. My brother-in-law went and got her, and she stayed at my youngest sister's house, and then she stayed there for Thanksgiving dinner on Sunday, and then she came and stayed with us on Sunday night, as did my sister that was visiting from Toronto. And then Monday morning, the three of us got up and took my mom home. So Cameron decided to stay home, just have a day on his own at home, which is a very rare thing for him to have. And so the three of us drove up, and we dropped Mom's things off at her place, and then we drove out to the cabin, which is about 10 miles, 17 kilometers from where she lives. And we had our like a picnic lunch out there, sat on the cabin porch in the sunshine. It was actually warmer outside than it was in the cabin, which is often the case in spring and fall. And yeah, we just sat and enjoyed our lunch. It was pretty windy, but it was mostly sunny and just beautiful. The leaves have changed up there more so than they have closer to home. And it was just beautiful to be there. There were a couple of things my mom wanted to do while we were out there. She had brought some things out to drop off and such. So we didn't stay too long because I wanted to get going home, so I wasn't going to be driving home in the dark. And of course it's getting dark earlier these days. And then what hadn't occurred to me until we were probably 10 minutes out of where my mom lives, and I saw like a big line of traffic, and then it dawned on me, going the other direction, and then it dawned on me that it was Monday of a long weekend, and that traffic would probably be a lot heavier going home. which it was. I'm glad we left when we did. We got delayed in one area for about 45 minutes. If you remember, I've spoken about some of the washouts that happened along that highway back in November when we had a lot of rain. And so there are some areas where they've repaired the highway, including one area where they've put in a temporary bridge that's single lane bridge, and so you have to go through that section of highway in a line with a pilot car or pilot truck, as the case may be. And it was quite backed up, more than I've ever seen it before. So it was a good 45 minutes before we got over the bridge, and then once we were over the bridge, the rest of the way was pretty straightforward. Some heavier traffic than there had been prior to that, but nothing that really held us up. So I think it was after 6 o'clock by the time we got home, and then Cameron and my sister and I went out and had dinner at a restaurant. And then the next morning my sister had to fly home, so I drove her to the airport and then came home and proceeded to kind of catch up on some things, wash sheets and towels and get things straightened out. And I've spent today running errands. I had to go to the bank to pick up some pesos for our trip. I had gotten the US cash last week, but they had to order the pesos in for me. I had to pick up a prescription at the pharmacy. I had to go vote. It's our civic election while we're gone. So today is one of the advanced polling days. So I went and voted and picked up a few groceries we need before the end of the week. And, I know I also had to go get something for one of the outfits that I'm wearing while we're in Mexico. Even though it's early, we're doing a Dia de Muertos, I'm going to write it on the screen. I've heard Dios de los Muertos. My Spanish is terrible, as you can tell. I think, or Dia de Muerta. I think that's what they are. Anyway, Day of the Dead celebrations. So we are having a big Day of the Dead party, and we've been encouraged to get some sort of costume for it. And so I was on the hunt for some kind of red sash. I thought maybe with Halloween being out there, I might be able to find like a pirate sash. For that, I was just going to pick up a length of red fabric at the fabric store and make one. But I went to a secondhand store and actually found this perfect red flowered scarf, kind of chiffon-y. Perfect. Just wanted it. I have a black dress that I actually bought this summer that will do for the costume, and so I just wanted to brighten it up with the sash. And then I have a mask, like a sugar skull mask to wear. So those dress-up parties we have on these trips are always really fun, so looking forward to that. And again, if you're new, this is a kind of a working holiday. The company that my husband works for does an incentive program for their customers, and they do a big trip every 2 years. This one is a year delayed. It was supposed to take place last fall, but we are going down south of Cancun to an all-inclusive resort for 8 days. So very much looking forward to that. So yeah, just my days are kind of filled with that. Tomorrow and the next day, I'm just gonna go through our clothes, do some, press what needs pressing, and just start packing things because we have to leave for the airport quite early Saturday morning. So this is the end of this portion of the episode, but I am hoping to do a little bit of recording at least while we're away. And then I'll do this type of episode again once we get home. And so the projects that I've shown you should be much further along by then, and you'll be able to see their progress. So see you again in the next part. Hi again. It is about Friday noon, and I really should be packing because we are leaving for our trip early tomorrow morning. But I'm taking a short break because I want to show you some awesome things that have arrived in the mail over the past couple of days. So yesterday I received the second shipment of the second edition of the Fibernymph Dyeworks Backyard Birdwatchers Club. And this shipment's colorway is Cooper's Hawk. Got those beautiful warm tones. So we received a full skein of a 4-stripe self-striping colorway. And then as you can see, 2 coordinating mini skeins. And it feels so good because this is the Heavenly base, which is a 90-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon base. So I do not know when I'm going to get around to knitting this up, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. I was thinking I might knit these for Cameron, but on the other hand, I might be selfish and keep it for myself. Cooper's Hawks are birds we see here where I live too. So it's always fun when I receive a colorway of a bird that I'm also familiar with. So yeah, beautiful as always. So last week I placed an order with SweetGeorgia yarns. Unfortunately, the sale will be over by the time this episode goes live, but they've been having a 30% off sale on most, if not all, of their fingering weight yarns for Socktober. So I thought I would take advantage of it and purchase the Party of 5 mini skein set that I've been eyeing to make my son's girlfriend a Brighten Up for Christmas. So this is the Brighten Up cowl by Lisa K. Ross of Paper Daisy Creations. This will be the 4th one that I've knit. And so here's what the mini skein set looks like. It's called Coffee Date. And these colors just look like her. She has a dress this color. And then I thought the denim-y blues would look good. And when I showed this to my husband, he agreed that he thought it would suit her. So there's one colorway, or one color in the cowl, color B, that it's touch and go whether there's enough yarn in one of these mini skeins. But I have previously knit with a couple of these colors before. So I went digging in my scraps and I found a little bit of this color here, which is Snowfall. And even though it doesn't look like it because the plastic is reflecting, they are very, very similar as far as dye lots go. So I'm going to use that as my color B. And I know I have plenty of backup here. I also have a little bit of leftover of the Goldmine colorway. But ironically, even though it looks like it matches pretty well here on camera, in real life, they are not a very close match as far as dye lots go. And so I'm not going to use this one. But another reason is I want the yellow to feature rather prominently. So I'm going to either make it the center or second to the center color so that it really, really pops. I've also decided that I'm going to take this project as my airplane knitting. So I had planned to take my Stephen West mystery shawl as my airplane knitting, and I am still working on Clue 1. I have a few more repeats to go. And then last night I watched the video for Clue 2, and I just decided there are just too many moving parts, too many colors of yarn, too many tools, too many do this, do that, stop here, add this. And so I decided it just wasn't going to be suitable for the plane after all. I'm still going to take it with me. I don't know how much knitting time I'll have while I'm away, but I am hoping to work on it at least a little bit, at the very least finish up Clue 1. But yeah, I just decided I'm obviously so familiar with this pattern. It's a nice compact project, but it's interesting enough to keep my interest for 5 hours or so, unlike a pair of stockinette socks. And so I am really glad this arrived today. Normally they ship really quickly. And so I had ordered it last week and I figured it would be here within a couple of days. And then I didn't get notice until yesterday that it had shipped. And initially it said it was going to arrive today. And then when I looked later, it said it wasn't going to arrive until Monday. And then when I looked this morning, I saw that it had arrived in our local post office overnight, or early this morning, I should say. And then sure enough, it did get delivered. So I was really happy to see that, because I've been looking forward to casting this on anyway, but now I have just the perfect project for the plane. So I'm happy about that. So of course you can't just order like one thing if there's a 30% off sale. So another thing I ordered is 2 skeins of this Flaxen Silk Fine, and it is in the Caudron colorway. So really dark gray, almost black. It is a blend of 65% silk and 35% linen. And I bought it to make Cullum by Isabel Kramer. This is a sweater that I have been eyeing for a long time. I think it was originally done in Quince & Company. I think they're linen yarn. And I have considered purchasing that yarn several times, but it's quite expensive and I've always just hesitated. So when this went on sale, and I thought this would be a similar weight and a similar, drape to it, a similar composition, I decided to go for it. I also considered, getting a brighter color, a different color, but I think part of why I like this particular top is the color that it was knit in originally. And I do tend to wear a lot of black or dark gray. I have a dark gray t-shirt on right now. And then I could put a black camisole on underneath it if it's too sheer to wear without one. And I just think it's a nice classic color. I don't know, is black a color? But I can wear it with white capris or with denim. So I just thought it was a really safe way to go, especially, when investing a fair amount of money on something like this. So a good classic color seemed to be the way to go. And then finally, as I've been looking at their website over the last few weeks, my eye was caught by a colorway of their Tough Love sock that I don't know if it's a new colorway or not, but they show a little swatch of it knit up, and it just seemed to have a lot of complexity to it, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I broke down and ordered a sweater's worth, which is 3 skeins, and it's the Pine Tree colorway. So I'm not sure how well you can tell with this lighting, but there are various shades of green and then almost a golden brown. And I just think it's going to be gorgeous. Now, as you can see, there does seem to be a fair bit of variation between the skeins, especially this one. So I will definitely be alternating skeins when I knit whatever sweater I decide to knit out of it. I've been eyeing up a couple of different patterns, and I'll talk about them more when I make my final decision. But and I don't know when this is going to get knit either, but I just decided I couldn't bear to pass up the chance to get it at 30% off. And I didn't go to Knit City this year, so is that an excuse? Sure, why not? I don't need an excuse. So anyway, those are my acquisitions. Now, you can probably tell my voice is rather croaky today. Within a few hours of recording the last part of this episode, I started to develop a sore throat, and then later that night I was really cold, I was all chilled, just not feeling very well. And I thought, uh-oh, I need to be on a plane in 3 days. So just to be safe, I slept out on the couch that night, and then I tested for COVID the next morning. Test was negative. Actually felt not bad all day yesterday, but I was really busy getting things ready for the trip. pulling out clothes, ironing things, all that kind of stuff. And then last night didn't feel too bad. I again just slept out on the couch just in case, because I didn't want to expose Cameron to whatever I have more than necessary. Woke up this morning very phlegmy, coughed up a lot of phlegm today, and have developed this croaky voice. I did test negative again. I've also been in touch with my sister who was visiting from Toronto, because the day before she left, she started to develop a sore throat, and she mentioned it on the way to the airport Tuesday morning. And I said, well, keep an eye on it, because that's how COVID started for both my mom and my husband. And she did go on to develop some mild cold symptoms, but she's now tested negative 3 times and is getting better, not worse, as am I. And so I'm feeling pretty confident that it's just a cold. I've also been in touch with another sister, and it has been like super smoky here the past few days. And my Toronto sister was actually blaming her sore throat on the smoke. And this other sister of mine was saying that she's also been getting a sore throat, and she's starting to feel some mild cold-like symptoms too. So this may just be the smoke. It might be a combination of a cold and the smoke. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty confident it's not COVID. So I will test again tomorrow morning just to be sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm safe to go. Thank heavens, because I would hate to miss this trip. We've been looking forward to it for so long. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm hoping that next time I record, I'm either on my way to the airport or I've already reached my destination. But for now, it's time to get back to the packing. So, see you later. Hello again for the third and final time this episode. Almost 2 weeks has passed since I last recorded. Today is Thursday, October 27th. I am wearing my procrastinating sweatshirt, and it wasn't intentional, but it turned out to be the perfect choice of garment for today, because I've spent the last several hours knitting and putting off recording. I had grand plans to finish out this episode by updating you on all of my projects and recapping our trip to Mexico. But as it turns out, as I suspected, I didn't have a lot of time to knit while we were away, so I don't really have a lot of progress to share with you. And then, to be perfectly honest, I am just not in the right headspace to record a long segment this week. And to gather photos and to do all the things that telling you about our trip entails. Not to mention, my voice is rather croaky. I didn't realize just how bad it was until I started talking. So it's just as well that what I've decided to do is just show you one new project today and give you just a brief update on the non-trip related things that have been happening since I last recorded. And then I will record another episode next week when I'm feeling a little bit fresher and when I have more things to show and tell. So, thankfully, I tested negative for COVID for the 3rd time the morning that we left. It turned out to just be a cold, and settled mostly in my chest and my throat. I often get laryngitis when I get a cold, and that's what happened this time. In fact, the day we left, I didn't have any voice at all, and my laryngitis persisted. Well, I guess it's basically persisted since then to varying degrees. I don't think it helped that we had, or I had been breathing in all of that wildfire smoke before we left. And then we spent a lot of time going in and out of air conditioning on the plane and the hotel and the various buses that were shuttling us back and forth between the airport and our various excursions. And of course, it did not help at all that I did a lot of talking. This was a working holiday after all, and we spent a lot of time interacting with customers and suppliers. And to top it all off, I could not resist singing along with all of the various bands that were entertaining us each evening. We went dancing several times, and we had a couple of other events. And yes, I just couldn't resist singing along. So it definitely hasn't helped. It had been improving, but then I did a lot of talking yesterday, which I'll mention, explain in a few minutes. So before I do that, why don't I show you my new project. So as I would have just shown you a few minutes ago, I received the SweetGeorgia Yarns Party of 5 set that I ordered to make the Brighten Up cowl for my son's girlfriend. And then I did explain that I was going to work on that on the plane, and that is what I did. And so I finished the whole back part. I changed my mind on the color placement though. After I had weighed the mini skeins, I realized that I would have enough of all of the colors, or each of the colors, to use any one of them as color 2. And so I ended up beginning with the darker blue, moving to the lighter blue, then into the gray, then into the brown, and then into this golden yellow. And so I finished the back, so this is how it looks, and then it wraps around to the front. This is the front. And my next step will be knitting along these edges and connecting these two edges together, like this. I'm not showing that very well because it's turning inside out. Yeah, these will join together, and then I will be casting on the stitches for this part of the cowl. And so this outer part will have the darker blue and the lighter blue, and the center will be this gold color. So I did not knit the entire trip there and back, but I did manage to finish this much. And now this is probably going to go away definitely for the next several weeks. I may not even pick it up again until December, but it is nice to get a good head start on it because this is going to be a Christmas present. So yeah, that's really the only project that's worth showing you. So let me just think about what else I can tell you. Fall arrived while we were gone. We came back to cooler temperatures and some rain. You'll notice I'm wearing a hoodie today. It's actually cool enough to wear a hoodie all day. The maple trees in our backyard have turned this beautiful shade of red, and we even have some snow on the mountains. The best part of all that is our wildfire smoke has disappeared. Finally, I think it was there for over a month. In, sometimes some days not as bad as others, but it has been persistent for that long. So that was a nice change to return to. What was not so good to return to was while we were away, I think it was the day before we left, I learned that one of my aunts had passed away after a brief battle with cancer. And so, that took a little bit of the enjoyment out of the trip. But we did attend her celebration of life yesterday afternoon. It carried on into the evening, which is why my voice is a little more croaky today, because I did a lot of catching up with various aunts and cousins, many of whom, I think that's the right way of using who and whom, many of whom I have not seen since well before COVID. And so as these things go, it's always a sad reason to come together, but it is really good to see each other. So we did not get home until about 10 o'clock last night. One, you know, in the scheme of things, not such a bad thing, but really irked me this morning. Little update on mole wars. If you've been watching for a while, you know that we have an ongoing battle with moles in our yard. And we've had a mole that's been present all summer, and we have had it set off our mole traps numerous times, and it's never been caught. So we had 2 traps set in the front yard when we left, and when we returned on Sunday night, they had not been set off, but nor were there any new mole hills. Well, yesterday morning, I wake up, there are 3 new mole hills. So I cleared them up and reset the trap in one of the new ones, left the other in one of the old ones, because inevitably when you move a mole trap, that's where the next molehill appears. Nothing set off during the day. We came back last night to find 2 new molehills in the same spots where 2 of them had appeared yesterday. And then got up this morning to find, I think it was 5 more. So it's 7 new molehills in the course of 24 hours. So I've gone and cleaned them up again and reset the traps. So crossing fingers. It's just, I know why they're here now. It's because we've had rain, so the ground is moist again, and the worms and grubs are, you know, having a heyday, and therefore so are the moles, because that's what they eat. But how frustrating. Yes, I would say my something good for this episode is that I was indeed able to go away, and that I wasn't so sick that I didn't enjoy it, and that even though we had some flight issues, which I will mention in next week's episode, we were able to go and return safely, and that is always a good thing. Just a reminder, we are now almost at the end of October, and so the Personal Sock Yarn Club for, I guess it's September, is wrapping up, and the October chatter thread, of course, will also be winding up for the Year of the Stash. So next episode, I will draw some names and award some prizes. So if you haven't posted your finished September socks yet, make sure you do so by the end of October 31st, or the wee hours of November 1st, because that's I probably won't close that thread until November 1st. Or I should say that morning of November 1st. So yeah, go ahead and do that. And I look forward to talking with you again next week. So take care until then. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.